Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Is it recording now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so let's just set up the room real quick. We do have cats. Sometimes they fight and
Lovingly,
lovingly fight.
brotherly, knock over our stuff, but in a loving
Yes.
way fight.
Yes, and we live close to the business highway, so sometimes you hear some people revving up their engine or hearing motorcycles or something.
We are in Texas.
So, yes, we are in Texas. So, having said that, we're going over phase one. If you don't know what phase one is, it's your first time listening to the podcast. Go back to the website, go check out the 3 phases page, and go down each phase so you can have an idea of what they're about. There's some blogs attached to them in case you want to just kind of do that route first. But you could also just stick around and we're going to talk about the outline.
You can deduce it. Phase one, we're talking about so phase one for an artist is all about building your art career. And in phase one, we're talking about the sirens throwing me off. In phase one, we're talking about building your foundation of your art career. Yes. So no selling. That's the theme of phase one.
Yes, the theme of phase one is learning, not selling.
Yes.
And we're going to kind of just walk you through the different action steps for the phases, or just phase one specifically.
Yes.
And the first one, like we just mentioned, was kind of building foundation, but what we're really talking about is building skill set at this action step, which is part of building a foundation. So building your skill set basically means what?
So building your skill set, which is the first action step in phase one, is all about building your technical skills as an artist, which is the very un-Instagram worthy, boring practices of drawing that sphere and shading it, but depending on where the light source is, and drawing that cube and drawing those perspective exercises and outlining and contouring and shading.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I used to get really annoyed at when I was starting out?
What?
I was just starting out to learn, and I remember getting on Instagram, and I used to see all these amazing artists. And I used to think, I was like, man, they just I guess they're just talented. They
were born that way.
They were just born that way. No.
Came out of the womb.
After having done it for 10 years and gotten really good at the things I like to paint, like ridiculously good in my opinion, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but you get to that point where you just know that you're very good at what you want to do. I realized that it took a lot of freaking work and repetition to get to that point.
In the infamous words of Hank Green, we're born not even knowing how to use the restroom. So
yeah,
no one is born an amazing artist. They had to learn.
Yeah.
So in building your skill set is really all about practicing so much that your skill goes from being a conscious effort where you're thinking, does this line go here? Should I shade darker over here?
Right.
To where you know it so instinctively well. All you have to do is think of the vision in your head and your body does the work for you. So that's called mastery, and that's all about what building your skill set is for. Correct.
Next, we're going to be talking about developing your creative process. This is going to naturally occur when you're focusing on building your skill set. You know, you're going to do so many drawings and sketches that eventually you'll start to understand what your creative process is like. And it's a very abstract thing to talk about because it's different for everybody.
And so I think the important thing is to talk about the goal of the creative process.
Right.
So the goal of creating or developing your creative process is to find a system of creating that works for you so that way you can create when you don't feel like it.
Right.
And you can create a lot of work.
Yes.
So creating efficiently and consistently.
So that basically, and once we get it, we'll get into that in its own separate podcast and blog post. But basically what you're talking about is, being able to set up an environment that is conducive to help you create consistently. Even when you're, not in the quote unquote mood, or even if you're a little tired. I don't recommend painting exhausted, but even when you're having a day where you just need to get on the canvas, but you're a little tired, having a consistent and well-developed creative process, you can get in there for an hour.
And that's what's going to make the difference when you go into phase two is if you have a very well developed creative process, you can scale up so much easier. Because if you go into phase 2 and you don't have a process set up for what the days that the water heater breaks and you didn't get your shower, or your car breaks down and you had to spend all day at the mechanics and your boss was yelling at you and you're just like, you're the last thing you want to do is paint. But when you're in phase 2, you have commissions, you have shows, you have deadlines. You don't have a choice anymore.
No.
That's the difference between the professional and the hobbyist artist. The hobbyist artist is like, I've had a shit day. I don't have to do this.
Yep.
As a professional artist, you do with your job. That's what a creative process is really for.
And I think some artists are scared of treating it or it feeling that way because, I think a lot of people can lose a part of that passion bug when they feel like it's work. But I think that's just why it's so important to understand your creative process.
Absolutely.
You can still enjoy it if you're in the right mindset, even if you're a little tired or frustrated.
Absolutely. You can foster it so that way it becomes an escape.
Correct.
Rather than a chore.
Correct.
And that's what developing your creative process is about. And that's why when so many people start selling, rather than focusing on the foundation, they burn out.
Right.
And they can't handle what it takes to be a phase 2 artist.
Right.
Because they don't understand how to cope with the sales.
Yeah. And
your creative process is what's going to carry you through that.
Correct. I think that's what happens when and I talk to artists that say they're behind. It's because of that, in my opinion. And not just in my opinion, but in my experience. I've been through it too. And when I don't have a good handle of my process, and I'll get behind because, one day or 2 or 3 days, I don't feel like getting on the canvas for whatever reason. And you get behind. That's exactly what happens. That's like any other business. If you're not paying attention to some of the things in the business, you'll fall behind.
If somebody's in, a jewelry business on Etsy and they're like, I don't feel like shipping for 3 days, that's gonna be a terrible Thursday when you get on the customer service emails and you got a billion angry emails.
No kidding.
So the same thing's gonna happen with art. It is a business, and that's why you are becoming a professional artist.
Right.
But this is gonna help mitigate that.
Correct.
So that way you don't feel that way.
Correct. So after that, the natural thing is focusing on inventory. I mean, if you're creating a lot. And
it's still not time to sell, though. We should point that out.
No. Still not time to sell. I'm always going to be mentioning that in phase 1. You're going to hear that a lot.
And don't think, I'm creating inventory. It's time to figure out what people want to buy. No. You're not Hobby Lobby, and you're not Target.
No.
And you're not HGTV. Okay, those people are going to buy from those stores. Stop it.
Yeah, people are going to want to buy the way you create. That's what they love. They want somebody that's considerate and put hours and hours and time into their skill set. People buy that. Absolutely. They don't want to buy an imitation of something they saw at Target. So building your inventory is just going to come naturally, but don't focus on the selling. Focus on building a body of work.
A lot.
Yes, a lot of it. Because we can't get you to the next phase if you don't have anything to present to the public. How are you going to do that if you don't have inventory?
Absolutely. And we talked about this before, that phase 1 really achievably, like in achievable terms, should take you about 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is not, you have a month to create inventory.
No.
And I wrote on the blog, tell me if this is an obscene number and I'll change it.
Okay.
Is 100 pieces a reasonable?
It's on the low end.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Because I've got friends, Preston.
I was thinking California. Preston has like 400 something.
Preston has upwards of 800
Oh my
pieces.
gosh, never mind.
And Carol in Austin, she's got 16,000 pieces.
She's James Patterson.
But she's been doing it for many, 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 many years. But at the same time, we're talking about above 100 because
100%.
You just have to you don't understand how quickly phase 2 is going to come and what things are going to come at you with phase 2.
And if you think about it from a business perspective, let's say you're going to a new store. Mm-hmm. If you go to a new retail store and they have 3 shirts, the whole store, they have 3 shirts. In one size, there's 3 items total. How likely are you going to pick one of those shirts?
Not likely. One, probably because they're priced ridiculously high and not worth it.
And they may be not the right size.
Correct.
Maybe not be your style.
Yeah, it's not going to have any options for me.
But if you go into a store that has hundreds of options,
Oh, yeah.
statistically speaking, what's the likelihood that you're going?
Oh, yeah, I'll be spending a lot of time there.
You're gonna, yeah. Not only are they more likely to buy from you, they're gonna be spending much more time.
Yes, if you've got a large body of work, especially if you're talking about putting it up online, people are gonna, if they really love your work and they love the first piece, they're going to spend more time looking through everything that you have. And guess what they're going to ask for after that?
Commissions.
Yes, they're going to either ask to buy some of the original work or they're going to ask for a commission. So that's why this is really getting close to phase 2, but you're not quite there yet. So I have to be reminded, don't
rush it either.
You'll find that it's going to be very tempting. You're going to be developing a lot of inventory, and it's going to be good.
Inventory means completed pieces.
Yes.
That abandoned stack of canvases in the corner don't count as 12. No. If you wouldn't put it up in the store with the price tag, it don't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count as inventory. Inventories are things that you're going to sell.
Yes. Now, I will say, when creating inventory, and we will talk about this, of course, when we get to this step, but does not mean be so perfectionistic that you can't get off the first one.
Yeah.
You're stuck. You're like, I'm trying to create 100 and I've spent 4 months on one.
Well, I think that's going to, they'll figure that out at the creative process when they've done that.
Oh, yes. We'll talk deep. We'll talk about the creative process, how to avoid that trap.
The creative process helps you figure that part out, where you're going to be able to finish something and move on.
Yes.
And the last thing that you're going to do in phase 1 is...
all my introverts cry in terror.
It's hard for a lot of people, which is building community. Is a lot of people call it followers or clients. It's really community. And the reason why you should be using the word community is because it implies that these people have come together because they have something in common.
Yes.
Clients, they don't know they have anything in common with each other.
And they just want something.
Yeah, a community has discord. They,
yes, 100%.
They get in. They get to know each other. Like, that's community. Those are the kind of things. That's the kind of quote unquote client that you want. You just want to treat them as community members. And in order to do that, there are some things that you're going to have to get comfortable doing in order to help foster the growth of that community. Which, like Shelby said, is for introverts and people that are prone to more anxiety with social spaces, is you're going to have to go to some social events. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be like the
belle of the ball.
No, you don't have to be like Ferris Bueller or anything like that. You just need to make some sort of effort to.
You should be yourself.
Yes, but you have to go in there with a goal.
You gotta leave your house.
The goal has to be, I need people to know that I'm an artist and what kind of art I'm creating. Yes. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody at that particular event needs to know, but at least 1 or 2 people you should get to know, exchange contact information with, and start getting comfortable with having those kinds of conversations.
And this is so much easier if you wait until after you have an inventory.
Correct.
Because then you can go to businesses. You can take pictures of your inventory and have a portfolio and go to businesses and restaurants and stores and be like, here's my portfolio. Right. Can we work out a consignment deal? And then it's not quite so icky. Yeah. Both of you are benefiting and you're getting your work out there and you'll start to get more comfortable. I always found myself more comfortable in that, and I detest the selling part of art. Yeah.
Yeah, that's difficult. And that's going to be probably some things that we're going to talk about in that action step, because, talking about your artwork and selling your artwork are 2 different things. I really do think that one of the last things that you guys should know before you get to phase 2, because it's going to happen right at the perfect time, right before somebody calls you or messages you that they want to buy something, you should have a basic idea of selling.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable, and people don't want to do it.
It never gets better.
But for me, you really do need to know how to handle a sale, at least at the very basic level.
Absolutely, because I can't be the only one who felt this way. It's very easy, especially with the meritocracy that we're taught in school, that if you're just a good enough artist, they will invite you to the galleries, and they'll invite you to the museums, and they'll invite you to the shows, and everyone will buy your art if you're good enough.
Right.
They'll just come in droves. It doesn't matter if you're Michelangelo. If he just kept his crap in his house and he never showed anybody, nobody would want it. Like, it doesn't matter what skill level you are. If people don't know what exists, and I'm not talking about two people, you can't rely on someone else to be like, I'm going to promote your art for you. Because if they're doing that, they are selling you something.
That's right.
Like, you have to get it out there because that's part of selling is the more people who get eyes on your stuff, the more likely you're going to create sales.
Correct.
And that's also true when we go down into selling is now we've whittled it down to the 10. Well, follow that, I'm joking.
You started joking because you were talking.
It's because we talked about selling and my body's rejecting it. Pardon me. So when you have, let's say, 100, don't laugh at me. I'm like crying through my choking here. Okay, so when you have 100 people that see your work, let's say 2 are interested in buying. Okay? If you don't know how to sell to those people, you're not going to close the sale.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about.
So there's 2 stages. One, you have to work on getting the people to see it, and then you have to work on getting the 2 people who are like, I like that, to buy it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you do it the right way, and if you've gone through the phases the way you're supposed to,
it gets easier.
We'll leave on this last.
Yeah, we're not going to go into phase 2.
The 4 things that are required for somebody to want to purchase your work are they have to first love it or like it, right? In order for them to like your work, you have to be good at it. So that's part of the early part of the phases. The second is they have to be able to afford it. The third is that they have to have a space for it. And the fourth is that they have to either know you or like you.
Which has nothing to do with what's actually the subject of your art. Please note that we didn't say that.
No, it has nothing to do with the subject of your art. It's subjective. So, there's 7 billion people in the world. There's going to be at least, 1 million people that
you've got a community
they're going to like your work.
Yes.
At least.
You just have to figure out how to get their eyes on
That's
it.
right.
And then you have to figure out how to sell to them.
So
that comes later.
Yeah, so that's why building community is so important. If you're building the right community for your work, selling will come naturally. It'll be very easy. You'll just have to make sure you don't fumble the sale. That's it.
And that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in phase 2.
Yeah.
But if you follow the 4 steps in phase 1 before you even start selling, it makes the selling process and making the money, because we all have to eat, so much easier than if you just decide to be an artist and try to sell stuff tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're gonna suffer.
Yeah, it'll be really hard.
It's good. Talk about the starving artist.
I've been there.
So this is what prevents.
Yes.
It's like building a house.
Yes.
You got to build your foundation in the frame, because all the paint in the world and the pretty furniture isn't going to keep the house up.
Right. You got it. All right. Well, that's the overview for phase 1.
Yes.
And you'll be able to find the first action step, which is building your skill set, as a blog and podcast episode, because it's going to be the first one.
Yes. So the next step, first for this overview, so this is the phase 1 overview. There is a corresponding blog and video for this.
Right.
So you can go to the website and you can find those other 2 resources. We'll also have them linked below.
Yeah.
The next step will be to find the podcast for creating or building your skill set.
Right.
And that talks about really digging down into the technique of art. So really developing your technical skills and mastery.
We have a pretty heavy conversation about all the different facets of skill set building. It gets pretty in deep in the trenches, but it's good stuff.
Absolutely.
It's great.
So anyone who's struggling to figure out how do I get better at or how do I improve my drawing, or how do I improve my art?
Right.
We've got you covered.
Yeah, got you covered on that one. Okay, so we'll see you there.
Yep, see you next week. Bye, guys.